Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Evans, founding executive director of Rhinebeck Writers Retreat. I'm so thrilled that you're with us tonight to hear about three very exciting musicals from seven incredibly talented writers. We're going to be hearing about The Lesson by Amon, Defoe, and Nolan Doran. And we'll be hearing about That's All, Folks by Scott Weinstein and Noel Carey. And we're going to be hearing first about Mexodus by Brian Quijada and Nigel D. Robinson. Brian and Nigel are here this week for their week-long residency at Rhinebeck Writers Retreat. The other teams have already been here for their week-long retreat. And so let's start with Brian and Nigel, and the other writers will come back to respond to each other's work. And so we'll see them again. So, Brian and Nigel.
How's it going, Kathy?
It's going great. How's it going for you?
It's fantastic.
Good.
Last day.
Tell us about the impetus for Mexodus. What made you be interested in tackling this subject, and what's happened since that first inspiration?
Yeah, I read, so Mexodus is a musical based around the estimated 4,000 to 10,000 escaped slaves in the southern part of the U.S. that found it easier to escape the southern border that banned slavery some 30 years before the United States did. So I read about this piece of history. I don't know. It was put on Facebook. It was on like history.com, and it blew my mind. And my first reaction was I couldn't believe that I'd never heard of it before. And then my second response was like, of course, that makes absolute sense that for slaves in the southern part of America that they would cross into that border. So that's I kind of had it, but I had the idea, but I knew that I couldn't write it alone, so years later I met Nigel, in fact, a month before the shutdown.
In February of 2020 we met, we were guest speakers at a actor-musician conference, and we didn't really know what we could do together, but we were like, we should know each other. And then I went over to his house like a week later, and he told me about this thing that I'd never heard of in my entire life. And we started throwing together some music, and a year later, here we are sitting at the Rhinebeck Writers Retreat, workshopping it, and finishing it up.
Yeah. So why don't you start with the song you were going to share with us? I think is a good introduction to Mexodus. So do you want to set that up and then share it with us?
Yeah. So the song that we're going to do right now is called Two Bodies. It is actually the song that we started writing when he came over for the first time. We just started kind of playing around, and the seed of this first song was what we wrote on that very first jam session that we had February 2020.
This song is literally Dr. Frankenstein's monster because we literally put it together like that.
It's the opening number of the show.
It would be looped in real life, but we're gonna do it live.
Yeah, but we're gonna do it live. Come. We only singing it cause that's the way we live with it. Oh, my dear Lord, give us our freedom, spare your pity, we don't need it like, oh, my dear Lord.
Have mercy on the proud.
Go ahead and stare at us. We are two bodies in America.
Whose stories span a country's history that no one's heard about.
Cause it wasn't allowed, it wasn't allowed, it wasn't allowed. It wasn't spoken aloud.
There was no loud mouth, deep south, secret way of speaking. Whispers only, fingers over mouths just to avoid the beating. They keep the locks over mouths held pretty tight. So we struggle to uncover America's other founders fight. To live in this America, who's scared of us? They came for us, brought all of us, and now we are here.
All roads there, folks, new laws, new flaws.
The same holy cross and the same northern star, here we are. We got far to go, but we won't keep it low.
We only singing it cause that's the way we live with it. Oh, my dear Lord, give us some freedom, spare your pity, we don't need it like, oh, my dear Lord. Have mercy on the proud. Go ahead and stare at us. We are two bodies in America. We'll bleed the same blood of this country and stories we share with you. Over time left out the books, but all it took was deep diving into a sad imagination, a true examination of a nation's early struggle. Cause from the wreck and rubble we came out the other side, sippity side. When you're living in this country, it's do or die. And we can tell you how, but first we gonna slow it down.
Take those shackles off my hands, oh Lord, I'm free. Take that noose from round my neck, no stopping me. Take those shackles off my hands, oh Lord, I'm free. And there's no stopping me, no, there's no stopping me. Yo, my name is Nigel D. Robinson, a descendant of Mansa Musa, who was shipped from the east to the coast of Cuba, then up to America, land of the free. 400 years later, and here you have me, standing here before you with a new manifesto.
Todos estamos juntos en esto. They call me Brian Quijada. I'm a child of Latino immigrants, equivalent, no different than any founding participants across the sea, across the border, in order to build a life much better than the one they knew before, just on the other side. Struggle just to break it in, and hustle once they made it in. For hard to be accepted in a land that's barricaded in. So where do we meet in the middle?
Give them the truth.
Alright, you see, in 1821, Mexico won independence from the colonizers of Spain, whose language they ejected into indigenous tribes, and with them they brought all types of European investing to start testing their new model of civilization onto a nation that didn't need it. But 300 years later, the Spaniards were defeated. Sound familiar? In 1821, Mexico celebrated their big victory.
In 1829, Mexico said good riddance to slavery.
But on the other side of the divide, Mexico's neighbor to the north was a little far behind. Cause life and liberty was vital to the cause, but what gave them pause was major financial loss. The need to make money, money, make money, money, money. Make money, money, make money, money, money.
Greed leads to many a war on earth. Death over make-believe lies in the dirt.
In 1848, it was America that won the war.
10 territories from Mexico, including the behemoth of Texas. Oh!
And what would that land be used for? Oh Lord, to pick a bale of cotton. And what was slaves' most common chore? To jump down, turn around, and pick a bale a day. Cotton, America's original sin, and it's then and there where our story
Take
begins.
those shackles off my hands, oh Lord, I'm free. Take that noose from round my neck, no stopping me. Take those shackles off my hands, oh Lord, I'm free. And there's no stopping me, no, there's no stopping me.
Wow, that's just gorgeous. That was the first song that you wrote from Exodus.
It was.
Awesome.
Yeah, about a year ago, we were approached by New York State and Film, and they had this great idea to release one track for every single month of the year, in the hopes that a year from then, which happened to be June, we would have a 12-track concept album. So that was the first track that we delivered.
Yeah.
And in fact, you were at New York Stage and Film right before Rhinebeck Writers Retreat. So tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about what you learned about the piece at New York Stage and Film and how that influenced what you've been doing this week at Rhinebeck Writers Retreat.
We had never looped together.
You might explain what looping is?
By sending stuff.
Some people don't know what looping is.
Yeah, the little thing with the
Looping is layered music making. It's just basically, it used to be cassette tapes that you'd have to rewind and kind of play over and over. But how I can show you one on my phone. This one's called Everyday Looper. I'm gonna go real close in, and it's just something. Let's just giving you the instructions of how to use it. Oh Lord. And then.
Well,
Lord help me. I gotta turn on the volume.
that's okay.
Can you hear this?
So
So it's just records.
Now I can.
The thing that I just recorded is on stop. It goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. So these songs are kind of built where he'll record in a bass, then I'll record in a guitar, and then once all this music is recorded, then we act out the play.
Yeah.
Right. So you were okay. So you saying earlier you'd never really done the looping live. This was your first experience.
yeah, we'd
at
never done that
Staging
together.
Film in front of an audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, with each other.
And
period,
how
and then
about
in front of an
the
audience.
characters? Yeah, exactly. So what did you learn about your characters, Henry and Carlos?
When we were putting it together, so we wrote it in the most kind of bizarre. We did not write it in order.
Yeah.
We had 12 tracks. We had a plan, so we split it up into 3 acts, and then we kind of sequentially first track of the first act, first track of the second act, first track of the third act. That's kind of how we wrote it. So it's kind of a wacky way of writing a play, but we knew that putting it all together and doing it in actual chronology would teach us a lot, and it did. It showed us where the holes were. It showed us that there was missing songs, that there was a missing book. So that was incredibly helpful to just first off make music together live,
Right.
and then finally spot where the dramaturgical issues of the story were.
So what did you focus on this past week at Rhinebeck?
The holes. I mean, Phil, we got a chance to. The first week in Poughkeepsie, we literally just had to stand up and make this thing happen live. And then the second week, we had our director David and Misha, our sound designer. We had a lot of voices in the room, like helping us dramaturgically and like figure out like, okay, this doesn't work here and that doesn't work here. You should rewrite this and rewrite that. So like we did a lot of work like that, but we had to deliver the same show that we had come in with.
Exactly, because it's so technologically complicated. We were like, cool, let's actually hold off on these huge rewrites until we have a week in the woods, until we have a week of isolation where it can just be us really focusing on the book and use those guys when we were there to figure out, to spot those problems. Like problems like, I think it's there was issues in, not issue, I shouldn't say issues. There was just like small potatoes, little things missing in our development of our relationship where my character of Carlos really wasn't super fleshed out. It was a lot of Henry's character.
A lot of Henry.
A lot of Henry.
A whole lot of Henry, but yeah.
And I'm watching him performing, and he's sweating bullets, and I was just like, hope you're doing well, Nigel.
And I'm like about to pass out 5 minutes into the show.
It was just like, that's not fair. We should give some to Carlos.
Give him a song.
Have him give me a chance to sweat it out.
But
we just. I mean, it's not quite done, and we're still kind of working on fleshing it out. But a song that didn't exist, which was this. What ends up happening is the reason that Henry has to leave Texas is because out of self-defense he murders the slave master's son for being wrongfully accused of a crime
that's very personal. I mean, not personal, but I mean like very current.
And so he crosses the Rio Grande, and Carlos is there, help him out of the waters, and there's like a recuperation that happens, and later in the play, Carlos goes into town and comes back with a wanted sign and a bounty on his head, on Henry's head, but that says that he had murdered somebody. So there's like a betrayal of trust. They're like, you came into my house, I was going to help you, but you didn't tell me that you had murdered someone, and that changes the scenario.
Yeah.
So that might be a good lead-in to the last song that you're going to perform for us. Do you want to, give us a little bit of a background that leads to it?
So Henry, they have this moment of confrontation, and Henry has to like explain himself. Like, look, I did this out of self-defense. I'm not like some cold-blooded murderer. And Carlos finally understands that because Henry's like, you would have done the same if you were in the same predicament. What can he say? So then we get past that, but Carlos is like, okay, well, you can't stay here because people are going to come look for you. Like, they're looking for you right now. So this is only your first stop. So like, we've got to get you to Piedras Negras, and I've got to.
We got to get you deeper into Mexico, basically.
So we need to baptize you into Mexican culture, and that's like really what this song is like Henry to Enrique, meaning Henry is going from he's shedding his American Negro and putting on his Mexican citizenship.
Yeah.
So he's
it's like, and this is one of the tracks that's like super heavily researched with, this whole story is composite information research that we found, because there's not a lot of it,
right?
Because it was so secretive. So these parts of how you travel through Mexico, all the research that goes into it is pretty interesting. So this is Henry to Enrique.
Déjame hablarte, contarte de dónde vive mi hermano en Piedras Negras. A town you could go and be protected and rest there. You head out when you feel it's right. Es seguro, protegido por tribu nativo. That is up in the land, a man named Gato del Monte. He leads that clan. We call them Mascobos. They protected todo, armado con pistolas españolas. They have an army with cosas like guns and horses. They work with the Mexicanos around Piedras Negras. There they secure the northern frontera protegido.
Protected?
Protegido, and just months ago in the nearby village of Guerrero, locals came across a Texian who disrespected the line. Took a fugitive slave and tied him to his saddle. Pero what will come next would be a bloody battle, cause el alcalde de Guerrero ordered his release, ending in a shootout and what would be, now take a breath, the slave catcher's death. Protegido, así que jala la palanca, arranca, dale con toda fuerza y múdate a otra estancia. Es la única manera de sobrevivir. We both know that you can't stay here. No, 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 you have to go.
But how do I get there safely, Carlos? Tell me now, do you know?
Now there are three options if you want to go. There are some things I have to let you know. You can consult the natives, pay the fur catchers. The quickest option is Spanish rose. Like a bunch of people are a rowdy bunch. Super ready to throw a punch, but they are known to be the most helpful guys when you find yourself in a crunch. Oh, fur catchers travel by the river, so the danger level is a little bigger. They're only out for themselves, amigos. They'll sell you out to the highest bidder. The long road to the Spanish builds are faster routes seguramente. If you go that way, you'll be seen by all the chismosa gente. And trust me, Henry, there are a lot of chismosa gente.
So then it's settled and I'll travel with the native guy.
It's probablemente the best way, just make sure to hide.
But what do I do once I get to the end?
And it's up to you to blend. Just say that you're a Mexicano.
Now hey, don't get me wrong, but if I'm Mexican, I look like I've been in the sun too long.
No, amigo, we got black Mexicanos too. So to blend in with us, yeah, is what you should do. Join the militia service, or marry into a familia if you start to get a little nervous. And from now on, you say you're Catholic, not Christian. You do the sign of the cross and you pray to la Virgen.
I need to change my name.
See, probably.
But if I change my name, what would it be?
Henry is Enrique en español.
Enrique. So when I introduce myself, what do I say?
You say, mi nombre es Enrique, soy hombre mexicano, no preguntes de dónde, de un área pobre. Mi nombre es Enrique, soy hombre mexicano, no preguntes de dónde, de un área pobre.
Mi nombre es Enrique, I feel it in the air, it's a new day and a free day. I'm no longer a slave to the name that I was given. It's like I've got a brand new existence I can live in. Mi nombre es Enrique, say goodbye to the Henry who was hauling bells of cotton. As far as I'm concerned, he's dead and forgotten. I'm not indentured anymore, there are no shackles microphones on my hand, so I raise them high up to the sky, and I thank the Lord for his good plan. A weight is lifted, I'm breathing easy, I'm a newfangled African. Old Henry couldn't live his life to see, please, but looking weak and can like John did and enjoy the river. I'm baptized in forever new. I was bound by chains, but now there's no limit to what I can do. Mi nombre es Enrique, soy hombre mexicano, no preguntes de dónde, de un área pobre. Mi nombre es Enrique, soy hombre mexicano, no preguntes de dónde, de un área pobre.
Wow, that was awesome. I forgot to mention to our audience out there, please send your questions through chat as well. If you have any questions for the writers at any point, I'm going to try to get to all of them. So let's hear from our other writers, your reactions.
Y'all, that's so fantastic. I guess I just had a question about like what it feels like performing it on instruments live as opposed to versus the loop. Like, what does that feel like to you? Like,
I think we've gotten so used to not doing it, right? Like this is like actually like I'm like, oh, because we, it's recorded in and then we drop it and then we can do the scenes.
Right.
But it's fun. I mean, it's fun.
It's fun. Yes, it feels natural, and I think we're going to incorporate more live playing in the show. I mean, there will be loops underneath, but like incorporate a little more like active
Actual
playing.
Musicianship.
Yeah. We got a note about that last week, and that was really interesting. So.
But it's also interesting, like there's also in looping, right? Or like when we're live playing, there would be an impetus to be like, cool, let's switch these chords up. But when you're looping it, it's the same cycle of chords. So it's finding ways to how to make those repetitive chords sound different by taking out bass, by changing kind of strumming pattern or kind of switching it up so that the ear does not exhaust itself.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian and Nigel. Really, it's wonderful to hear you live.
Thank you.
Too.
I enjoyed it too much. I enjoyed it too. So great.
Yeah, and to see you in the writer's house too.
Thanks.
Like,
I know, that's what I was about to say. It's just nice. Thank you. Like you guys, y'all left some great creative juju up in here.
Yes.
And we're just thank you for that, y'all.
Hopefully we didn't take
Yes,
it all.
yes. We started off and you guys ended, so it's like this wonderful circle. I love it.
That's right.
yeah. So we'll say goodbye to the lesson team and the Mexodus team, and I'll talk with Scott Weinstein about that's all, folks. Scott. Oh, there were some questions. Excuse me. Just a minute from Alex Robertson. Would love to know more about how Brian and Nigel went about researching.
Oh, so hard. I mean, there was years ago. There was I reached out to somebody who did their graduate thesis at University of Texas at Austin. I reached out to her because her graduate thesis was exactly on this, and I reached out and I was just like, hey, yo. I'm really interested in your work. I'd like to write a play about it. And she never got back to me. And I was just like, oh, damn. But I did take like kind of some of her research. There was a really amazing book that I read. I forget what it's called. The legend, the life of, I forget his name. But it was basically about this man who was a black runaway slave who escaped into Mexico. Was very light skinned, so he was able to kind of more. It's basically like 1850s Catch Me If You Can, where like he showed up to Mexico and was just like, cool, I'm a dark skinned white man, and I'm gonna start running things here. But then he returns to the States to start making business deals, and says that he's just a Mexican, so he's not black. So he starts morphing into all these different personas, changing his names, and he becomes the first kind of black millionaire. And that was, and it was like right in the time period that we were writing in, and it was so incredibly useful. We also read a bunch of slave narratives from the actual Underground Railroad that led north. So there was a bunch of little kind of things that we had to scrap together to put it.
And we have a nice comment from Gigi. The songs are absolutely draw you in. They're wonderful. It's exciting to learn about a previously unacknowledged aspect of our history. And a comment from Kalani. Love the complexities of cultures and also religious identification. So interesting. Kalani's an alumni writer, Kalani Cuepo from last summer. Yeah.
Woo, Kalani.
Let's go, Kalani.
Yes, yes. All right. So now we'll say goodbye. Yes.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
And I will spend a little time with Scott, who is here by himself, sadly, because
Hi.
your collaborator. Yeah, your collaborator Noel couldn't be here.
Yeah, he
Excuse me.
sends his love from Minnesota, where he is visiting his partner, who he hasn't seen in 2 months, and is seeing her in a show. So we forgive him for that, and he sends his love. And Brian and Nigel,
Yeah,
that was
great.
so good. That was awesome. I was so glad to get to finally hear that. It was so great.
So tell us about That's All, folks. Your
Yeah.
your two-hander, another two-hander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a two-hander ish. So That's All, folks, is about an animator named Mel Mars who has who has a famous creation named Sly Fox, who is sort of like Bugs Bunny if my Siri just turned on, sorry. Who's sort of like Bugs Bunny if Bugs Bunny didn't have like network censors stopping everything he did. So it's like a cruder, more violent, a little more sexual Bugs Bunny. And he's this famous character that Mel sold off 2 years ago. And in the time since he sold him off, this character has gone on to become the most recognizable cartoon in the entire world. And he is now struggling. He's alone in his studio, and he is struggling to find his next creation and get out of his writer's block. And eventually we learn, and so on this night, Sly Fox, his cartoon, appears to him and sort of torments him throughout the evening. And eventually we learn that Mel is struggling with more than just writer's block. He's also dealing with depression, and specifically grief over the loss of a child, who we learned that the reason he sold Sly off 2 years before was to pay for the medical bills of his child. And so he is coming to terms with both his depression and his grief. So it's a laugh out loud comedy until the moment it's not, and then hopefully funny again.
Well, why don't we? Luckily for us, you and Noel created a video last week.
We did.
So that, so that we could get a sense of the two characters, Mel and Sly. Do you want to set it up?
Sure. So this is Sly's character development song. It's the third song in the show after a little prologue and Mel's song, and this occurs pretty much right after Sly has appeared to Mel. We've set up in the first song or the second song in the show that as Mel's process is that as he draws, things kind of come to life. And in this case, Sly comes to life and takes on a life of his own, and has this song.
Great.
Oh boy, did you miss me, huh? Did you miss me, pal? Oh boy, did I miss you. Say, I love what you've done with the place. It's like a deconstruction on stained glass. It stains and glass.
Uh-huh.
How about me, huh? How do I look? Is it good to see me?
Yes?
How dare you say that after what you did?
What did I do?
You sold me! You sold me like a timeshare in Idaho. Why'd you do it, huh? Why'd you have to throw me away like that? What'd I ever do to you? Sure, I called you a talentless hack, but I loved you, Mel. I loved you.
I didn't sell you, you were bought.
You should see the way they treat me over there at that big, powerful, fancy Hollywood studio with their mountains of money. I can't handle the fame, Mel. I can't. It's the worst. They're working me down to the bone. I don't get a moment alone in my new house. It's the worst. I'm wading through bags full of mail, but I got more fans on my tail than Mickey Mouse. Aw, Jiminy, you don't see the way they treat me. God forbid the fox gets an evening off. When I beat the bigwigs threaten to beat me. You ever been slapped with stacks of money? I'm not kidding, it's not funny. It's the worst. Between the red carpet events, you'd think that a fox would have the sense to call it quits. It's the worst.
I've made a huge mistake.
You think you made a mistake. You're talking to the tune who's gone on the record multiple times just to say that Pepe Le Pew is, quote, a really great guy.
That sounds tough.
Tough? It's the worst. The business is wearing me thin. There's always some offer coming in I have to pass. It's the worst. They got me on 6 different shows. The money goes right up my nose and out my ass. Ah, Jiminy, I just need a little breather. Hollywood is no good for getting sleep. Ladies won't stop fighting over me neither. You ever seen Minnie bitch slap Daisy? I'm not kidding, that shit's crazy. It's the worst. The way that these women persist. My hand's nearly falling off my wrist just signing tits. It's the worst.
All right, time to go.
What do you mean? I've got 3 more verses, a bridge, and a chorus, and a dance
I don't
break.
need this right now, especially not from a cartoon.
Oh no, I'm bigger than that, baby. I'm socks. I'm a t-shirt. I'm a goddamn lunchbox. It's the worst. I'm nothing but one stinking brand. My hands are tied so tight they might as well be cuffed. It's the worst. You ever walk right past a shelf just to turn and see yourself sitting there stuffed?
I can't say I have.
Good thing you didn't retain merchandising rights, or you wouldn't know what to do with all that money. Between the merchandising, royalty checks, the advertising, copious sex, the press releases, mountains of drugs, and never-ending benders with bugs. It's the worst. I'm not gonna make it alive. There isn't a way I can survive the glam and glitz. With all the pictures, Walk of Fame stars, it makes you wish you were back with Mel Mars. Well, it's actually not that bad.
Oh my God! It must be so fun to work with Noel Carey. It must be a blast.
Oh, it's great. We have such a good time together. And part of the reason we started working on this was we just had so much fun together as a director and actor. And our comedic sensibilities were so meshed that we were like, well, we have to find something to make together. And it's just us riffing and joking and all the very specific things that we find very funny, and hopefully other people find funny, and our love of, you know, cartoons and the Muppets and all of that just kind of meshed into one.
Yeah, it really comes through. I remember the first time I heard the music, I mean, Mel and Sly felt like he could be a real cartoon character. Like he really captured certain moments perfectly.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, the first thing we did when we started writing it was we actually wrote what would be a Sly Fox cartoon. So the show opens with like a 2-minute kind of classic Looney Tune, but starring our character of Sly Fox. So we get the sense of those cartoons, and that was really fun. And when we write, we also switch off who does which characters and who does what voice. So we both sort of have different elements of the characters as we kind of riff with each other and write it.
Wow. So I wanted to let the folks know who are watching, we have a program where we assign what we call a peer advisor to each writing team. The writing team actually selects the advisor, and then I work on trying to get them together. And you had Rick Boynton of Chicago Shakespeare Theater, and I'm wondering if you could just tell me how he might have influenced your week when you spoke with him, and what did you do during your week?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he had such a great influence on it. You know, what was great was that the first question he asked was not, how are you going to do this? Which was so wonderful. But he really got into the dramaturgy of it with us and pointed out that what we had kind of written was we were spending so much time in the exposition of these two characters because we loved these characters so much. And he was like, you wrote 40 minutes of basically of sketches these characters and character background, and it's so fun and so funny, but that's the first paragraph of your 5-paragraph outline, and it might be time to get to the thing. And we're like, oh yeah, we spend a lot of time sitting in this very delightful exposition, and he sort of turned us on to really getting into the action of it a little more. And originally we had written Mel to be his depression to be a lot more on his sleeve at the beginning. I think now, as a result of Rick's comments and thoughts, he's not so antagonistic with Sly at the beginning as he was in the other draft. And we actually see them starting to work together, trying to work together to try to find his next idea, as opposed to just sort of pushing back against Sly quite so much. And so that was super helpful, and just helping us hone in on the metaphors we were interested about in discussing and using cartoons to get at, and how we can bring those out.
That's great. That's great. So why don't we bring back all the writers, and I invite anyone watching also to ask questions. We should say that Scott is. Are you in a rehearsal room
no,
now?
I'm
Scott?
actually.
Is that why we're here?
So I've been working at a vaccination site as basically like the company manager, and New York started offering incentives to people to get vaccinated. So what was originally going to be time off right now, I got called in because now there's lots of people getting vaccinated again, which is great. And so I'm adjacent to the vaccine site right now, which is why it's a little noisy.
Yeah. Yes. All right. What do you guys think of that, all folks?
It's awesome. It's so fun. I know that, like, listen, and I love that Rick stayed away from being like, how are you guys going to do this? But, like, do you all have, like, I mean, in writing, I know that that's like a further question for design and all that, but in your perfect world, do you know what the manifestation of Sly the Fox would be?
Yeah, so we're hoping it would be, animation projected on stage. And, even in the 2 or so years, 3 years now, I guess, that we've been working on this, the technology has just grown leaps and bounds. Originally, we were like, this will never be able to be produced. And now people are like, oh, you could do that. And something that we're really interested in is the idea of digital puppetry. Which you see a lot in motion capture.
Cool.
And, and so so the idea of being able to have a live actor kind of off stage doing it as opposed to pre-recorded stuff.
Yeah, so cool.
What?
Disney World's been doing that a lot. Like if you ever see there used to be this great attraction at Disney World that was like a Monsters Inc. improv comedy club where you'd like go and the CGI characters would interact with you, and that was a very expensive digital puppetry where there's actors in a room with like gloves and a thing on, and they're able to make jokes and the mouths move, and so that's our hope, and we want it to be live animation if we can.
Incredible.
Yeah, and we also keep making it harder and harder for ourselves by expanding the world more and more, and but that's the goal.
Awesome. We have a question from Mark Grayson. Do we discover that Sly's manic nature has a dark underside that
we
relates
very much
to
do.
Mel's
That's really
depression?
astute. We've designed Sly to basically be a manifestation of Mel's depression, in the ways that for the show was really inspired by the fact that we know and relate to so many artists who struggle with depression, and the way that keeps gnawing at you, and that idea that Sly of you don't want something to be the best thing you've ever made because it means that all your best ideas are behind you, and Sly represents that. And so there's a moment in the show where Sly's like, maybe I'm the best thing that you'll ever make, I don't know. And you're like, oh shit. And eventually Sly kind of leads Mel down a hole into this animated world that is like what we're calling kind of his rock bottom, and kind of keeps poking at him, and Sly wants Mel to realize that he will not create something better than Sly. And ultimately, Mel discovers that the thing he needs to do to move on is to engage with his grief and draw his daughter. And so that's kind of what rescues him. And he draws it for the idea that he draws it for himself and not for anyone else, and not for commercial purposes, but that he finally draws her as she was. So Sly, that's a very astute comment.
Wow.
Sly very much is his depression.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Question from Gigi Bolt again. How did you come to the sound and expression of Sly's character?
That's a great question. We got to do the best research possible, and we watched just hours and hours of Looney Tunes. So it's very inspired by like, especially like the Chuck Jones era of Looney Tunes. But then we also get away from that as we kind of break that down, and Mel's sound is a little more contemporary. And then we also have moments where we see some of his past characters that were not as successful, and those all kind of have different sounds to them. So we're trying not to get stuck in that kind of Looney Tunes, ragtimey stride feel too much. But definitely that's the big inspiration for it, is all those great, incredible Warner Brothers, orchestrations of these cartoons that every moment of which is like every step you take is musicalized, and we love that idea for the world.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Totally.
Thanks.
It's
So great.
great. All right. If there are no other questions, I don't think I have any more questions. We'll say goodbye to Scott and Brian and Nigel and say hello to Nolan, Avi, and Ty.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. It's so fun to see you guys again. You were our first week of in-person week-long residencies for Rhinebeck Writers Retreat in almost 2 years. So remember that first day when we were just sitting around the dining room table and
It
like,
was so wild. It was like it was really kind of that first moment in a year and a half or more that I'd been with other people outside of my immediate family. It was like incredible and terrifying and just like so welcome at the same time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, spiritually, it was just
definitely.
like it was a moment to. I didn't know how bound up I was just as a person, just being in my little cocoon for I don't know, so almost a year and a half, and just being able to come and be with my two friends, and also just to be in nature. It was overwhelming to a degree that I didn't even know that I needed it so bad. So it was just incredible.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It was great. I definitely remember the moment where we got to hug each other and then go for a walk to talk about the show that you're working on. Wow, revolutionary, right? Look at something beautiful and talk about your show.
To have people over for dinner, you know?
Yeah.
So, yes. So let's talk about your show, The Lesson. I thought that you have beautiful videos because of your work with the Dramatists Guild Fellowship. And so I thought we'd start with your short intro and then talk more.
Yeah.
So, revolutionary Beethoven and Mozart.
Yeah.
Sorry to everyone who's watching with young people.
Yes. Don't repeat
A lot of
those
curse
words
words on our show.
unless your parents tell you to.
So, what inspired you to write this very interesting take on two classic greats?
It's a good question, right? I mean, I think it just came from so many. There were so many ways to come about this, but I think we're just wanted to break. We had this idea that there was this lesson in 1787 between Mozart and Beethoven, but that was not really the impetus. It was just that this cool thing happened, and then it was about how do we find the way in, and is it something? And we both, I think, all of us love sort of sci-fi, and we love taking things and going outside of the norm. So we're like, how do we find these really iconic people in history and make them completely unlike you've ever seen them before? I think that was really the impetus anyway.
That's right. Totally.
You
know? Avi, you were part of the original idea. Is that right?
Crew.
The original creation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nolan had this idea, and like he brought me on, and we started writing songs, and it actually started off as just a collection of songs.
Yep.
We were like, let's have some fun. Who knows what will happen? And then it started actually happening.
Yeah.
And we were like, I guess we need to figure out what the story is. And Ty is just like a master at that. And it was like, he was such like an obvious choice to like join us. And we all knew each other from NYU.
Yep.
We all went to the musical theater writing program there. So we've been friendly for, You guys
Many
can live
years.
in 10
Oh,
years
oh
now.
my God, it's been like forever.
So, yeah,
we old, hashtag
we
old.
old. But now, yeah, we invited him to join this process, and it's been a perfect fit over the past year or so. But much like the other folks, we hadn't been able to actually get in a room together until Rhinebeck.
And we came about it really different too. It didn't start normally at all. Nothing about this project's been in the best way. It's been so unconventional. We just sort of started writing music, and the story is sort of, we're now coming into it in the best way because of Ty. I think we've all found it together, and it feels really authentic from that perspective. But the music has been was where we started, and it just was like pieces of it just came when the inspiration came.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you were in the Dramatist Guild Fellowship. Was it this past
right before
year
COVID
or the year
and into
before?
COVID. So it was like, we ended with COVID.
And into
we crossfaded into COVID.
Yeah.
So but that gave you an opportunity to get these beautiful videos. Isn't that right? That they funded that for you?
Yeah, they sort of said,
or
do you
the
want to do a
videos?
Zoom reading, or do you want to, what else do you want to do? We're like, we want content, we want videos. And so we were like, let's make videos. And Avi's friend, Zoe Martinson, is just this incredible director. And we were like, yes, we want to do, let's make videos. And that's sort of what you saw on the screen was a result of that. And the DGF really helped make that possible.
Yeah.
So why don't one of you introduce the first video, full-length video we're going to see is Young Boy.
Ty, why don't you set us up?
Okay, yeah, for sure. So what you're about to witness is Young Boy, and I think, as Avi mentioned and Nolan, we all like to collaborate because we're world builders. And so in this song, it's supposed to be shot in 360. So this version, it'll give you a 2D idea about also sort of some of the technology that's underscored in this piece. And in Young Boy, it's late night in Mozart's loft. Beethoven sort of shares a painful childhood memory about growing up with an abusive father who pushed him too hard to be this musician, right? And so in this song, Young Boy, they share a very intense, fruitful moment together. And the performers in this piece, you'll see Milo Alosi and Heathcliff Saunders.
Yep.
Wonderful.
All alone in a room with no windows, just the patter of small feet. My friends want me to come outside, but the lord of the house keeps me practicing the keys. And I try to pretend melodies were my friends. I can still hear his voice on repeat, saying sacrifice is everything. So I played till my fingers bled and the child was dead inside. Used the notes to hide all the pain so he'd never see me cry. Turned the boy to a man so he'd never begin to enjoy the simple life. I just need a song to rewrite all the wrong, and it's all because he said, if you wanna be like a young boy, go outside. So you wanna act like a dumb boy, go and cry. I don't wanna be like a young boy, I won't cry. Yes, I wanna be like a big boy, but I lie.
Sacrifice is everything. Sacrifice is everything.
Now I play in these rooms full of windows. They throw roses at my feet. The success isn't sweet, doesn't fill all the holes from a childhood incomplete. Who was he to decide who
I'll be what I'll write. And his words, they may haunt me for life, saying sacrifice is everything. Now it's our time to choose to go on, or we'll lose all the better parts of us. All we need is a song to right all the wrong, and it's time we finally say, yes, I wanna be like a young boy, make it right. So I wanna act like a young boy, it's my time. Yes, I wanna be like a young boy, it's my life. Yes, I wanna be like a young boy, so alright. It's my time to fly. We live or we die. So I'll let the child out today to dance in the sunlight, sing when the moon shines, play just for fun without notes on the page. Realize that there's no sacrifice with the price of a life stuck in a cage.
There's a reason we met, a connection that I never felt before.
Let the past be the past. Don't erase it. Let it push you through the door. Yes, I'm gonna be like a young boy. It's my time. 'Cause I gotta be like a young boy, make it right. 'Cause I gotta be like a young boy, it's my life. So I'm gonna be like a young boy, it's all we'll do. Sacrifices everything. Sacrifices
That is really beautiful, and their voices are amazing.
So good.
Oh,
Those two.
they're the best.
That's
So
the best.
Wow.
The best.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, beasts.
So, tell us about what you focused on in your week at Rhinebeck. What did you learn, and what did you leave with for next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak a little bit to this, Kathy. Such a great question because, having ideas like this, there can be a complexity of ideas, sort of fragmented around. So what we did was simplify storyline, story moments, plot points, deepen the characters between Beethoven and Mozart, really made sure that the characters emotionally were driving the story forward. And at the same time, we had conversations about the container for the piece, how this piece would be held, and the lens at which we wanted people to view the piece and enter this historical legend.
Yeah, and we had come across a lot. Like I think the biggest
Great.
challenge for this show too is when you think of Mozart and Beethoven, you think like, oh, I know who they are, I know their music, I know like everything about them, and we feel like we wanted to show a totally different side. We wanted to sort of break the stereotype and take it out of the museum and sort of put it into a modern container. And by doing so, we break a lot of rules, but we also run the risk of alienating our audience. So it's like the big thing we're sort of trying to unlock is how do we let people in and get people on board to know our character without them feeling like, oh, that's not the Mozart I know, but discover something new about Mozart and Beethoven in a way that's exciting.
Yeah, what I like is the way like sacrifices everything, which every artist can relate to. And so it feels like it's bringing them back to their core as artists.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Here's a good question again from Mark. Mark is curious how much the current conversation about gender identity constructs influences the work, or does it arise from personal experience of the creators?
That's a good question.
Yeah, definitely. We've engaged in conversations about a lot about identity and who these individuals are. Definitely because we call this a reimagining of a fantastical queer fantasia, and so I think there's a lot of room in that, right? To be glitter fantastic. To when we think about the identity of queerness, right? To queer spaces, to reclaim songs, dances, histories that were for so long silenced, but I think in terms of identity, we're able to make and create and relate that to Beethoven and Mozart and become resilient with identity and reshape identity and what it is. And I feel like our conversations with world building and these characters just completely deepens, right? These two seemingly male identified individuals to have a plethora of experiences and backgrounds.
Yeah, totally.
Wow, that's beautifully said. So, was there anything else you wanted to share about your time at Rhinebeck? Like the note cards on the floors.
Yes, there they are. There they are. We use those floors.
And the floor, the note cards, the
note card, the word sex. We came like Kathy came over. It was like sex is on the floor. We were like, yep, that's what we're like. Sex is on the floor for sure.
Brian said it really well earlier when he was talking about just finding the order of the show, which so you can clearly identify what the holes are. We hadn't really done that in a long time since it's been morphing and changing and evolving in all these new exciting ways. So we just kind of mapped it out and we're like, oh, there needs to be a song here, or oh, there is like a whole missing plot point. And that allowed Ty to kind of reimagine the entire frame of the show, rewrite the whole beginning. It gave Nolan and I a lot of great new material to kind of dive into some new songs. So honestly, just nothing like some spare square footage.
Yeah. And on top of that, we got to meet with Kent Nicholson too. And I mean, he was just such a great start to the week. He's so smart and so generous with sort of giving us that feedback. I feel like we've been wanting, like when we first started the show, it was like Mozart and Beethoven in outer space on a spaceship, and then it's like a hat on a hat on a hat on a hat, and like he's like, let's take and just figure out where and how do we tell this story. So and that's been what's so exciting, to have that space with all three of us together to simplify and then take the pieces, the core elements that are become really visible when you have the time to do it.
Yeah, I remember you told me you said focus.
Because there's no shortage of ideas.
Pick something.
Yeah, it's just like going in like a really strong direction. So
beautiful. Well, for our last song of the evening, it's a beautiful love song, which feels appropriate. So would one of you like to set it up for us? Because of You?
Yeah, sure. This next song is called Because of You. This one was actually written, created, filmed, everything all in quarantine. So this one we never saw one another while we were writing it. The setup for this song, and you'll hear at the very beginning, it's kind of based on one of Mozart's piano sonatas. This is, they're on top of a wall. Mozart's feelings for Beethoven kind of locked into focus. He's got to make a choice to leap forward or be left behind. Enjoy Because of You.
There's a wall that's growing from the sins of our parents, looking up, not knowing what is ours to inherit. And I'm spinning all around because of you, losing my balance unsteady, and I'm safer on the ground, I know what's true. Yeah, the future is heavy. Oh, when you speak, it's lightning. Constellations igniting. I'm awakened, eyes open. What I knew now is broken. So I'm looking all around because of you. Watch where you're walking, now steady. You gotta keep it on the ground, keep it on the ground to find the view. Have I found it already? It's funny how a change of you can make you see the world anew. Only shades of gray till you came through. Now we're sharing the same color blue. And I feel it all around because of you. Earth moves beneath me, I'm steady. And I'm floating off the ground, rooted off the ground, look at the view. Never knew I wasn't ready. And I'm spinning all around, spinning all around, spinning all around because of you. No more looking all around, looking all around, looking all around because of you. And I feel it all around, feel it all around, feel it all around because of you. Now everything is new, everything is new, everything is new because of you. I'm awake, eyes open. What I knew now is broken.
That's just a gorgeous, gorgeous love song. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So why don't we invite Brian and Nigel back, if possible, for our everyone's back. Wonderful. So Brian and Nigel, do you have any thoughts on what you just saw?
I was wondering, is it a two-hander or is there like an ensemble around them? Because I was like listening to like the backup vocals and stuff like that, and it adds so much to it. But I was wondering, like, is it just them or is there like a chorus of some sort?
You hit the nail on the head. Like there's so many options. Like I think the show, because of technology, it could be a two-hander with virtual elements, but I think if we do it live, there will be like this whole ensemble of people. And Ty is like creating this world now where we have these incredible, teams of people that Ty can tell you more about it. But yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be LED screens to houses that are representative of people in their life, sort of like how you enter a story or a legend, right? There's the people that you have met in your life that allow you to do the thing that you do. These people are here to tell the story alongside Beethoven and Mozart, which is very exciting.
Well, I find all three of these musicals very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing with us. None of this is possible, of course, without our amazing donors who pay for the house, the supplies. Yes, a $600 stipend for each writer, and your food, and your travel. So I just want to take a moment to thank the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts, the lead supporter for the lesson residency.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
The underwriting supporters for That's All Folks are Paul Feuerman and Bruce Verbetti.
Thank you.
And the lead supporters for Mexodus residency are Rick Farrar and Jeff Cedrone.
Hey,
let's go, Rick and Jeff.
So if you folks out there are inspired by these amazing writers and the programs that we do for them, it's our 10th anniversary. you can make a donation in the link below YouTube. And our next Meet the Writers Live will be on August 14th at 6 p.m. And you can hear from 3 more teams about 3 more musicals. So any final words, guys,
Kathy,
before we sign off?
You.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you
Kathy.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
Yes.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's so nice to be with you in
It's wonderful
person
to see you.
this summer.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. All right.
Peace.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
See you, everyone. Excellent work.
All right,